show where we explore tips, tricks, and strategies to help you and me to live a more awesome life. I got to tell you, I am super excited to be talking to this guy today. And if you saw my Facebook post, you saw me post this literally last night. I'm helping my son move some furniture around, and he suddenly stops. He looks at me and says, "When did I get stronger than you?" How dare you? Everybody, please welcome author, entrepreneur, my friend, Dean Dwyer.
Jim, thank you very much. It's nice to reconnect again. It's been a long time.
It has. Yeah, I say my friend, but we're really Facebook acquaintances, but I'll consider you my friend.
I figure anybody that you take the time to actually have a conversation with, when we've done this previously, that's a friend. You got to call that a friend.
Absolutely. Good point. You know what? Hey, if you're wondering what Dean's talking about, I actually interviewed him about 3 years ago, and had some technical problems that time. We had some technical issues at first here, but had some technical issues. The sound was just awful. Too bad to even too terrible to even use. So we finally reconnected, and I got to tell you, Dean, could you? I mean, if you saw the if you go to his website, deandwyer.com, check out this guy's photos, the transformation he has made. Dean, can you tell the folks a little bit about you?
Sure. So first of all, I will say when you go to that site, you will see the shameless topless photos that are up there. But it's the only way that I can communicate the change that I've created, other than trying to use words which wouldn't do it justice. So, so a little bit about me. Yeah, Jim, when you interviewed me about 3 years ago, you said, and I was in our email exchange back and forth. It's funny during that time. So a lot of people heard about me back in about 2011, 2012, because I'd had some success in the paleo space.
Yeah.
And I had lost some weight. And, had started to kind of make a name for myself there. And I experienced what many people experience, is they create change and things are going great. And then suddenly at some point, the wheels fall off and we end up right back where we once were. And this has been an ongoing pattern in my life. Weight is something I've personally always struggled with. Mm-hmm. And so I kind of vanished after I kind of put all the weight back on again. I vanished online for quite a while. Mm-hmm. And even actually when you interviewed me back then, I was really, I was struggling back then to even put myself out there, because I had put all the weight back on again. And so I didn't feel like for me personally, it's like, I can't talk about something I believe in if I can't actually make it work for me, even if I believe strongly in the concepts that I've developed for myself. And I know at that point in time, I'm sure my heart wasn't in it, in the sense that I was talking about things that, so I was that sort of that fraud mentality that I had of like, who am I? I'm that guy who's talking about stuff that he himself can't do. So it's a little bit different this time around. So last year, I started again on another journey to kind of transform how I look, because I came to a whole bunch of realizations. We can hit on some stuff today, but I realized that my life goes as my body goes. Meaning that if I don't like how I look, then I don't show up in the world the way I want to show up. I was hiding myself behind the clothes that I was wearing. It affected my self-confidence, my self-image. It affected every aspect of my life. And I thought, if I don't figure out a way to get this in line, that's going to be my life. I'm going to be hiding from who I really am because I'm frustrated with how I look. So put a program together for myself. I sort of committed to it for about 7 or 8 months, and it went really well. And I took a very different approach, Jim, than what a lot of people do with this. And I thought, you know what, I'm just going to start sharing my ideas, because I think that there are a lot of people out there who've tried a whole bunch of other things, just like I have, didn't work, and that this, that my ideas might be more applicable to the way we actually live our lives. So, yeah.
You touched on a lot of great stuff there, and I got to tell you that when we had that conversation 3 years ago, I could tell your heart wasn't in the game. You were so kind to do the interview, but I could tell you were just kind of like, I'd rather not be doing this. So,
I honestly, I
Yeah.
really struggled with all that. I said, I ended up deleting my website. I deleted my like I had a Facebook fan page that had 5,000 fans. I deleted that. I deleted my Twitter account. I deleted everything because I'm just like, I can't be that guy. I was so embarrassed about the fact that I had a story. I even wrote a book about
I know. I read the book.
Transformation. And again, the principles, I've been reviewing the book recently, and I thought, I think 19 of the 20 principles are still great principles. I'm like, yeah, I still firmly believe in these, and I'm doing a lot of them. But I wasn't able to do them at the time that you and I chatted. And I said, I really struggled with this idea of like, you can't be, I can't be that guy. There's too many people out there who talk about things that they can't do. I can't just be adding to the noise. Like it might be a great idea, but if you can't actually make it work in your own life, it's not much of an idea.
Dean, I got to tell you, this resonates with me so much because, similar story, I took off a bunch of weight. That's what got me into doing hypnosis. I used hypnosis, lost a bunch of weight. And then with this pandemic, all of a sudden, the weight started. At first, I was doing great. I was kind of smug. I was like, oh, you guys spending time watching Netflix. I'm out doing my 10,000 steps and I'm meditating and eating right. And then all of a sudden, I woke up and said, what happened? And,
I woke up about 10 or 15 times in my life with that same story, Jim. Like, what happened? Things were going so well. What happened?
Yeah. And I have that same kind of that feeling. I'm like, like I have a keto program, I help people lose weight. But I'm like, I'm not really pushing that so much right now because, I know I can help clients. My clients are doing great, but for some reason it's not clicking for me. So maybe I selfishly wanted you to come on today so you can help me out. So if you're out there, I just want to let you know.
I'm a big fan, by the way. I'm a big fan of, that's one of the great things about having a podcast is that you get to interview people who are doing something you really love and you ask them whatever it is you want. It's like this amazing learning opportunity. So ask away.
Yeah. It really, and you know what, I got to tell you, before I do that, I want to tell you, thank you, everyone who's watching. We got Samara, and we've got, I'm gonna wreck your name. Alika is listening in the Czech Republic.
Oh, wow.
Thank you.
Wow.
If you're listening right now, please give us a like, a share, that kind of stuff. Let everybody know about this because we're not going to just be talking about weight loss. I love what Dean said. It's not just about the weight, but what that does for you, and also what you said you said something the other day. One of your posts was about like functional fitness. Like if you needed to, I think this is my interpretation if I'm remembering, like if I needed to swim a mile to save my life, could I do that? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I call that, so that mindset for me is B911. I need to train in such a way where I can either save my own life or the life of somebody else in an emergency situation. And so that means investing in skills that let me do things with my body. So it's not just about doing stuff. It's not doing, sort of vanity exercises like arm curls and stuff like that. It's about doing things that actually build my capabilities with my body. My body becomes a tool. I think of it kind of like a Swiss Army knife. It can actually do things for me.
And that's something that I've thought about over the years. I think it was I read an article a long time ago in the Art of Manliness, the website.
Yeah, I know that site. Yeah.
Yeah, and it talked about that. It talked about it had all these different. I can't find the article now, but it talked about all these different things. You should be able to do this, this, and this in case there's an earthquake, there's civil unrest. Who knows? You got a fire in the building. Could you lift? Well, number one, yourself. Could you lift your spouse out if they needed it? The neighbor. These are.
Or a child or whatever. One of the enduring images for me, Jim, online, and I think this was 2004, that tsunami that happened.
Yeah.
And there was a YouTube clip of people standing on the beach and just before the tsunami came in, and people not recognizing at the moment what was happening until it was, until it was really close. And then you see people running. And I don't have children, but I thought, imagine if I was there and I have a 3 or 4 year old son or daughter. Right. I would have had to be able to pick them up and run as fast as I could to get somewhere, hopefully to safety. And we don't think about things that way, but that's kind of how I think too about the fire, right? Imagine if you're in a fire and you have to pull yourself up to a window or pull a child up, or again, a spouse, you have to drag them, to get them to safety. those sorts of things are the scenarios that kind of run through my head when I'm doing things. Does this allow me to actually do stuff that is beneficial, not only to myself, but to other people?
Yeah. Is your old podcast, are those episodes still available, or did you delete it?
So yeah, that was part of my my mass deletion. I deleted the podcast from the iTunes feed, which was silly. In hindsight, I should never have done that, but you live and you learn. I do have them on a hard drive on a computer that no longer works. I just don't know how to get them off the hard drive.
That's too bad, because I was going to say, even if you're not into, building a successful body, there was a lot of entrepreneurial tips on there that were really, really helpful. You're actually the inspiration for me starting this.
Oh, nice. Well, and actually, we touched on this at the beginning of the show, but this isn't, for me, I don't look at this as I want to lose weight. This is this impacts all areas of my life. I sort of look at my life as 4 components: my body, my mind, my work, and my relationships. And getting this right impacts all the other areas. So they're not, a lot of people kind of look at that as it's a separate thing, but they're all interconnected. My tagline for me is, I call it, when I started, this was building my successful body, and my life. They're connected. They're not, it's not there's my body and here's my life. They're connected. How I feel about myself impacts how I show up in my life. So they're all, and it impacts the work that I do and how I show up to that work, and showing up for things like this, and not being self-conscious of oh my God, do I feel I have something to offer and I shouldn't be here and I feel like a fraud. I don't have any of those feelings anymore. So, it has had a vast impact on how I show up in my life.
That's awesome. Dean, if you're talking to me, I'd say to you, Dean, everything was going great. All of a sudden I woke up and my knees hurt, my pants aren't fitting. What do you recommend? What's the first thing I need to do to get things either back on track or on track for the very first time?
It's a good question. It's probably a more in-depth conversation for us to sort of figure out sort of the root cause of where everything, where the wheels kind of fell off. I will tell you that in my case, the one of the things I did is I looked back at, before I started, I already knew how this was going to end if I just did what I did every other time I tried to lose weight, right? Is I would do a bunch of stuff, and I'm great for about 2 months. I can force myself to do the things that I want to do, but force is not sustainable long-term. And so I thought, if I know what's going to happen, I'm going to do a whole bunch of things, and then in 2 or 3 months, the wheels fall off, and then 2 or 3 months after that, I'm right back where I once was, or even worse. So I went back and I what are the similarities between all the failures that I had? And it turned out that, because every situation before this one has been a failure, because I lost weight and then I ended up putting it all back on again over time. Yeah. And there was one common thing that happened in all of them, which was I stopped doing the things that got me results. And so what I would say so the first thing for me is, when I sat down, I thought, okay, so I need to stop stopping, meaning that if I'm going to invest in a behavior, not for all these solutions out there now are about 30 days, 60 days, 90 days for this. The problem with those solutions is they violate the law of cause and effect. And the law of cause and effect is, when you remove the cause, you remove the effect. So the moment you stop a behavior, you're going to, whatever the effect is going to stop as well. So I thought, okay, knowing this, and this is what I've done in the past, then I need to figure out if I'm going to invest in a behavior. And that's the way I think about this now. It's all about, I read a lot of stuff on Warren Buffett. So I consider myself an investor, but not in companies, in behaviors. So if I'm going to invest in a behavior, I'm looking at it for decades, not for days. So the mindset I use is think in decades, not days. So everything I'm investing in is for the long term. So if I'm going to weigh my foods, I'm not weighing my foods for 30 days and then I'm going to stop. I'm weighing my foods for years and decades. If I'm going to weigh myself, it's the same thing. If I'm going to, invest in a certain type of workout, the same sort of thing. It's I need to be able to do this for decades. So the first thing I would say for people who've had results and then, are kind of right back where they once were, is my question would be, what did you stop doing? So that would because you were doing something, we were all doing something. And then for me, I find ways to convince myself that I no longer need to do them. I used to log my foods, and then, I'm like, and I literally, Jim, I had a moment where I thought, I got this all figured out, which was the kiss of death. That was the moment that everything went downhill, right? And so,
that's what you mean, yeah.
so now for me, when I write in my journal, so today is day 474 on this journey. So, but when I write in my journal, it's day 1 of 474. And I actually stole that from Jeff Bezos, because that's a mindset he has with Amazon, is he treats everything like it's day 1, because on day 1, you're super excited and you're motivated and there's a vision and you come in full of energy. On day 2, it's not quite the same. So for me, I treat every day like it's day 1. It's like, okay, today I've got these 10 vital behaviors and I'm going to do these today. And I just I focus on today, make sure I get stuff done. But back to your question, probably the first thing I would ask people is, what were you doing that you stopped doing? And then figure out why you stopped. For me, a lot of the things in the past were either simply bad behaviors that I should not have invested in, but more commonly was that I invested in behaviors that were just too extreme. So they weren't sustainable long-term. I'm an extreme junkie. I love like workouts like P90X and like these things that are really extreme. I always gravitated to those, but the problem is they burn you out over time. They're just not sustainable. So that was again, there was a whole bunch of sort of aha moments on the journey, but yes, stop. I stopped. The goal was to stop stopping. So I said, if people are struggling have had success and then they don't, then my first question is, go back and like, what were you doing that you stopped doing?
I love this day 1 approach. And this is a great example of why, of how everything's intertwined, right? It's not, health is not separate. Your health isn't separated from your business and the ideas, the concepts and everything. They all intertwine. So,
yeah, I'm just grabbing. So, and you might have seen this, Jim. I've talked about this a couple times, but I don't read weight loss books. I read business books because I believe that a successful body runs on the same principles as a successful business. So, this book just happens to be on my table right now. I've got every book that Jim Collins has written, always business, but every principle he talks about applies to building a successful body and a successful life. And so, even when here he talks about there are 5 principles about why companies fail. The principles apply to why we fail at building a successful body or a successful relationship or a successful life. And one of the great principles in here is the undisciplined pursuit of more. And I stole that. I'm like, I love that phrasing, the undisciplined pursuit of more. So for me, it's about the disciplined pursuit of less. I've always gravitated to more. And I thought, well, what if I approach it this time? But I look to do the least amount that I have to do. I call it a minimum viable threshold. What's the least I need to do to get results? And then just focus on that.
Well, and since you brought up the minimum viable threshold, this is a great time to transition into your vital behaviors. You got 10 vital behaviors. You do them every day, and they've transformed your life. Can you tell us a little bit about those?
Sure. So, and actually those are, whenever I get on one of these things and people say, what are your 10? And it's like, if I'm sitting down in my journal, I write them on.
Right.
I have to recite them all. I'm like, oh my God, I can't remember any of them. They are on my website. It's a free download. If you go to my website, you can see what my 10 are. Let's see, I'll go from the top and I'll see if I can remember. But the first one is no sugar, no flour. Sorry, they're now going to be all out of order. I weigh myself every single day. Oh, you want to jump in?
I was just going to say it's fine. If just do the ones you can remember, and again, so let me just jump in real quick and let you know about this too. So if you go to deandwyer.com, as he talks about, he's got the vital behaviors. He's also got the 10 apps that he uses, his 10 mindsets, game-changing F-aging manifesto, which I love that too, especially in light of what my son said yesterday to me.
We can talk about aging too. That's something else that we'll hit on a little bit.
Good, and I do want to tell you, I've been reading the newsletter. It's got a lot of great info, folks. So go grab it from him. So I'm sorry I interrupted you. So to talk about the maybe just the top 3 vital behaviors or the ones that come to mind.
Yeah. So the 3 that Yeah, if I had to rank them in terms of the three that I think are most valuable, so the no sugar, no flour, and I just want to talk about no sugar for a second, because there's a lot of people who aspire to take sugar out of their diet, but they really don't want to take it out. They take it out because they're like, I know it's, probably the right thing to do, or it's a good thing to do, but they don't want to. And I was similar. I had mindsets around, so I took sugar out of my diet in 2018. I wasn't doing any of the other things I was doing. I had no successful body protocol in place, Jim. I thought, you know what? I want to take sugar out of my diet and see what happens. But everything else in my life was the same. I was sporadic with my exercise, and I was eating healthy and whatever that means for people. And so when I started, actually, it just happened to be January 1st. I don't set New Year's resolutions, but it happened to be January 1st. And I thought, I'm going to see if I can go the year without sugar in my diet. And I went almost the whole year. I went to December 27th. But Jim, it was another one of those things where you would think if you took sugar out of your diet that you would see a significant transformation in your body.
Right.
And maybe a little bit, but not much. And one of my big takeaways from that is that I also think that we falsely assume that a single behavior is going to transform our bodies. And it's like, it isn't. The way I look at it now is the idea is to bundle behaviors together. So, when you bundle taking sugar out of your diet along with, eating whole foods and doing some sort of training regime and hydrating and get proper sleep and all those sorts of things, when you bundle all that stuff together, that's where the magic happens. So, but actually the reason I ended up taking sugar out, there's a woman by the name of Susan Pierce Thompson. She wrote now I said, I don't read weight loss books, but she's got a book that I read that I really liked. And it's called Bright Line Eating. And in that, she's a researcher, neuroscientist. And from her research, she was talking about the fact that what sugar ultimately does is it blocks your brain from doing what it's supposed to do, which is to keep us active and to tell us when we're full and when to stop eating. So for me, I started thinking about that. And I thought, you know what? If I take sugar out of my diet again, then what I'm actually doing is I'm optimizing my brain. I'm allowing my brain to do exactly what it should be doing. And if I optimize it, then I don't have to do nearly as much of all these other things that I used to do to try and make up for the mistakes that I made with my eating. So as I said, I only do 10 minutes of exercise a day. I work really hard to make sure I do 10 1-minute activities every single day. And I've been able to do that because I'm optimizing my brain. By taking sugar to my diet, I'm allowing my brain to do what it's supposed to do, which is to keep me active and to tell me when I'm full. And so that's why that one's number one, is that I realized that's actually a productivity hack for me. It's my greatest productivity hack, is by taking that out, it allows me to actually do all the other things, but just do the minimum and get, some decent results. I weigh myself, which is something else. I was, in fact, the book I wrote, I actually had a chapter called Smash the Scale. I didn't believe in weighing myself. But the truth was, when I look back on that, the reason I didn't want to weigh myself was I didn't know how to deal with the number. The number never matched up with what I thought it should. It never read what it should have read. Like I get on, I'm like, what? I'm 10 pounds overweight. So, but I realized that that's a great way. The scale is a great starting point to teach yourself resilience, which is why I bought a scale last year. I was about 5 weeks into the journey, and I thought if the number on a scale is going to flatten me, there's no way I'll have success on this journey when I mess up on a particular day or whatever it happens to be. So weighing myself is really important, but for benefits that a lot of people don't think of when they think about the scale.
Wow, that's a lot of good stuff. I got to tell you too, I have mixed feelings about the scale, because when I've worked with clients, for myself too, I mean, it's hard not to get discouraged when you do all those right things, you eat healthy and everything, and then the scale doesn't move. And so, what do you do in those situations? Because I know for a lot of folks, when it doesn't move, they go, might as well give up. What do you do when the scale doesn't move?
Well, the way I try to look at this now is that the scale is not, I think, well, I'll tell you my sort of theory on this is I think for a lot of people, the number ends up becoming an indictment of our character. So when the number doesn't match with what we think, we turn it into a character flaw that somehow I'm not good enough, or I'm not doing whatever it is, but we turn it into a character flaw. And, I know people say things like, oh, the number is just a number and stuff like that. But we have to go beyond just saying the number is the number. Like for me, for example, I was weighing myself. I've been weighing myself now for 440 days. I got down to a certain point in February, and then I started playing around with my calories, and I was curious to see how many calories I could have that I can get away with. And what happened was on the scale, I hit the lowest weight I got to was 150, which was when I got to 150, I was like, how far do I want to go? Like, am I looking to get to zero? Like when do you stop? When is it? And I realized, I thought I didn't want to get into the 140s. I thought a man in his 140. I'm like, no, I think I was 140 when I was a baby. So I'm like, that is not a goal for me. So I started thinking, I think between 155, 160 is my ideal body weight. Anyway, I started increasing my calories and my weight started going back up. So what the scale actually told me, and it took me 6 months to sort of look at that, I ended up going back up to a high of about 159. And what I didn't do over those, and it was just gradual. If you look at my, I have a graph of the year, you will see it went up gradually. But what the number tells me is that if it's not trending in the direction I want, then the behaviors that I'm investing in are not necessarily working the way I think that they should be working. So there's a couple things you have to do with that. Number one, maybe I've invested in the wrong behaviors, but it's also possible that behaviors you invest in are the right behaviors, like taking sugar out of my diet. That was the right behavior, although just taking that out didn't do anything to change what my body looked like until I started changing the kinds of foods I was eating. But it also, it could be that the behaviors I've invested in aren't getting what I want, or I could have invested in the wrong behavior. Now, again, that's kind of that takes work though, right? That's easy for me to say, you got to be able to sort of sit down and rationally think through what the number means and take a look at the behaviors I'm doing. For a lot of people, they're just doing stuff, right, Jim? So when they get on the scale, they have no idea why the number's gone up or the number's gone down, right? And so that's part of what throws people off is they don't even know what that means, right? Because they don't know what they're doing. Like they can't clearly define what it is they're doing. Because I had identified 10 vital behaviors, I could look at things and I could say, well, I think it might be this. So for example, I'm not a calorie counter, but calories I've determined are important. And what I mean by that is that there's a calorie cap for me. If I stay below a certain number, once I stabilize my food, if I stay below a certain number, my calories, like when I go above 2,500, my weight goes up based on what I'm currently doing. So my calories do matter. So because I was logging my foods, because I had that data, I could take a look at the number going up and I could say, okay, well, maybe it's the calories. Maybe then if I take the calories back down and I keep them at around 2,500, maybe I will see my weight go back down. And that's exactly what happened. And you'll see I went up to about 159. And now for the last 3 or 4 months, I'm consistently between sort of 155 and 156 and a half.
That's awesome. Hey, if you're out there, I just want to give a shout out to Scott King, said he's loving this cast. Thank you. So am I. If you're watching,
so what a great name.
Right. If you're watching this right now, please give us a like, a share, a comment. If you have a question for Dean, we've got a few more minutes. We're going to be wrapping up here pretty soon. We've already gone longer than I wanted. I
don't even know what time it is.
Yeah, so I know it flies by. It's amazing.
Nice.
So please do ask your questions. Also, reach out to him. Seriously, this guy, and there's no big sales pitch in his newsletter. He's not. Hey, go buy my this and that and everything. Every other newsletter. It's just a lot of good information. Hopefully he will start doing that pretty soon so we can make some money and keep doing this work.
It's coming. Courses are coming.
Good. Excellent. I think a lot of us could use that course. And, you said something too that was interesting. You talked about the sugar, taking the sugar out. What do you think about sweets though? What if artificial sugars, just that kind of stuff?
Yeah. Thank you. That's a good, and I always forget to put a qualifier in front of that. Refined sugars. So I've taken out refined sugars. So I do eat fruit, and I eat two healthy portions of fruit every day. And so I still, one of the interesting byproducts for me of taking sugar out of my diet is my taste buds have come alive. And this is going to sound weird, but like food, amazing now. Like when you steam broccoli just right and put butter on it, like it's so delicious. And I remember the first time I had that experience, I'm like, broccoli, really? Like it tastes this great? Like I was stunned at the changes, but by taking it out, I feel now, Jim, like a lot of people, one question I get asked is like, do you treat yourself? It's like, I don't, because I'm not saying this is some sort of promotional tagline, but my meals feel like treats. I am so excited to have my meals. They taste so great. Yeah. That it's like, it's wonderful. And so with regards to sweets, I eat 2 big meals a day. I used to eat 3. I've worked my way down to 2 just because it's more time efficient for me. It's one less meal I have to prepare, and I've trained myself to do that now. But before I have my second meal, I have a bowl of frozen, and I have the same treat every day, and I love this. It's frozen banana slices with frozen blueberries, and recently I've been topping it with organic coconut milk. Jim, it's like, well, again, this is my take on this, but it's like ice cream. Like when the banana starts to thaw, it has a consistency like ice cream. So I feel like I'm having banana blueberry ice cream, and I also put a little bit of pumpkin spice on top, and it's so delicious. But my meals now, by taking sugar out, I still have fruit, but I don't feel I'm missing out, which is really important, because if I take it out and I'm like, oh, I can't have sugar, that's sustainable long term. I had to figure out a way to fall in love with taking sugar to my diet, and I don't miss it. I don't crave it. I'm not envious of other people that can have it, because I know what it does for me and why I'm doing it. So yeah, there's been a lot of positive benefits as a result of that.
Hey, Mark Barris, thank you so much. Says hello, Dean and Jim Kellner. Thanks for watching, Mark.
Sorry, I'll stop calling out everybody's name when they come on.
No, please do. Yes, give him a shout out. Mark's a hypnotist down in, I believe, California. Scott's a hypnotist out in Texas. Boy, you know what? So this whole sugar and sweets thing is just a big deal for me. I used to be. It's funny as you're talking, Dean. It's like I'm remembering. And I remember this one time I had been off when I was doing paleo, and I was feeling great. This is the thing. Don't lose weight because you're gonna look better. Do it because you feel amazing, right? I remember I went to this restaurant and I was on paleo, but I was like, oh, I'm gonna treat myself to some of that pineapple. And I can still remember it was better than any cake, any pie, any cookie I'd ever had in my life. You know what I mean? Do you understand?
I hear you. I'm telling you.
Yeah, and I didn't feel like crap afterwards, so that was even better. And
yeah,
no
guilt. There's no guilt.
No guilt. And I can remember too. I took blueberry. I remember this frozen blueberries, and I poured the coconut cream, and I mixed it up, and it was like ice cream, and I got excited about it. Yeah, and so this is one of the things that I always try to, and I got to remind myself, I'm not missing out. I'm not missing out and I'll tell you, and if you're out there and you're like doing keto or paleo or something, I got to be honest. One of the things that I did, and I know this is a problem, is I started eating the keto treats more. And I was just talking to my friend Dan Hedrick, a hypnotist down in Portland. He took off a bunch of weight, And he said, he goes, every time that I have the keto ice cream, I check my ketones and the strips. I'm out of ketosis again. And you think, but it's sugar-free. It's okay. Test, people, test. Some people maybe can get away with it. But the other thing too is this is what happened, Dean. And it's a lot like my smokers who go, well, can I just have the nicotine? Can I have the nicotine gum maybe, or a patch? I'm like, no, because you got a chance then that you're going to, as long as you're addicted to that, there's a really good chance you're going to float right back into it. Same for me. Now I catch myself, well, the keto ice cream isn't handy. So yeah, maybe a few M&Ms aren't that big a deal. And next thing you know, boom.
Yeah, I was great in the past at finding ways to convince myself to abandon a good behavior for a bad one. I was also going to say with the whole treat thing, and I think this is something for people to think about. But yeah, treats are like I know people will be like, oh, you put paleo in front of it, or keto sugar, or keto flour, whatever it is. It's still a sweetener. And by the way, sugar-free for people who a bit of, and I don't know the specifically what is behind it, but the sugar industry doesn't allow other industries to use the word sugar. So the loophole was they could say, oh, it's sugar-free, but it's not sweetener-free. So you can put something like corn syrup in it, and which is also awful for you. But you can legally say it's sugar-free. Sugar-free doesn't mean it's sweetener-free. There's a big difference between the two. So, but yeah, that whole switch of like treats are still treats. Doesn't matter whether you stick the word keto or paleo or whatever else in front of it. They're still treats. And if I have a very addictive personality, I know that if I can't have one, right? So if I have one, I'm over the edge.
Oh yeah, I talk about having a couple of M&Ms, but it's not a couple. I start with a couple, and
it doesn't matter. Oh, M&Ms. You could have given me. It doesn't matter what size the bag is.
Yeah.
I consider it one. It's still only one, and I'll eat it all.
I'll tell you a funny thing about M&Ms is one of my favorite go-tos, my little treat was M&Ms with peanuts, and I was in an NLP training. If you don't know what that is, folks, it's related to hypnosis. Yeah. Go ahead. Dean knows. Yeah. And the guy, we were doing it, and he said, all right, we're going to do this swish pattern, this technique. I don't know if you're familiar with the swish pattern or not, but he goes, somebody who's craving something right now. And I couldn't wait. I was waiting for lunch to go out and have myself some of these peanut M&Ms. I raised my hand. He does this exercise on me. We go to lunch, and I couldn't wait. I was like, oh, please hurry up. I want to go get those M&Ms at the snack shop. We come back in. He looks at me and he goes, Jim, he goes, how are those M&Ms? And I go, I forgot all about them. So the thing is, that's one of the great things too, is when you can use some of these tools to just forget about it. But the thing is, so I never buy them, the peanut M&Ms, but my wife has some around here, and I have to try to get rid of them because I'll have a few now and I don't even like them, but I'll keep eating them. It's the strangest thing. So go ahead.
No, I was just going to say there's a lot to be said too for increasing willpower just by tweaking your environment, right? In terms of what's available, what you can see, what you can't see, what's in the house, what's not in the house.
Yeah. That's a great point too, because I sometimes, especially when I was working in this one clinic, it was mostly older women wanting to lose weight, and a lot of their husbands were just jerks. And the women would say, well, he puts his, whatever it is, his peanut M&Ms right there on the counter. And I said, what if he kept those in the trunk of his car or something? What if you're an alcoholic? It wouldn't be okay to set the bottle of bourbon on the cabinet, So think about those kind of things, folks.
So I'm kind of shaking my head. I hear stories like that all the time of other like partners that are just not supportive of, of helping somebody, even though I may not want to invest in the behavior. I don't do my part to kind of help somebody achieve success in theirs. And it's like, you hear that time and again, I'm just like,
why would you want to be like that? It's so frustrating. And the thing is, when we're talking about unhealthy foods, it's not that the unhealthy foods are unhealthy for some people. Unhealthy foods are unhealthy foods, right? You're not benefiting your body or your life by having some peanut M&Ms. I should be getting, this is not sponsored by M&M's Mars Company, by the way. Maybe
one way I frame this too, Jim, is that, because people, I remember I was talking to somebody about the sugar thing, and you hear a comment like, oh my God, I cannot imagine my life without sugar in it. And I'm like, I have yet to hear somebody lie on their deathbed who is surrounded not by the people they love, but by the favorite foods. Like
Right.
nobody cares about their favorite foods when you're lying on your deathbed, right? You want to be surrounded by the people you love. Like we have this false belief about what we think sugar is and what it means to us. And like, oh my God, if I take it out, what am I going to do when company comes over? And it's like, you have coffee, or you talk, right, or you go for a walk, or you have, you have something that's not, sugar related. Like, it doesn't change the dynamics in terms of the people you're communicating with, but we've got this crazy association in terms of what sugar means. And it's a cultural thing, right? It's all part, like you go to any coffee shop and it's, like 80% of Starbucks shouldn't exist because it's all stuff that isn't any good for us. But yeah, there's a whole cultural aspect to this too that is another show. It
is, yeah. And you say that, and it's funny too, because one of the things that I'll hear a lot of times is people end up with basically eating buddies, and it's your friend that you go to the buffet with, or you go to that you always have to go share a piece of cake at Starbucks, those kind of things, and come up with, like you said, go for a walk or something. It doesn't have to be food related, everything. So. Man, I wish we could do this all day, but I know Dean's got stuff to do. My wife's cooking me some lunch, hopefully something healthy. So we're going to get on to that. Dean, before I'm going to, in just a minute, I'm going to ask you to summarize, what people need to do to take some action, maybe today. I mean, ideally, what's someone, 1 to 3 things that people could do today to get started? You've already mentioned a few things. We're going to summarize that. Before I do, I want to just let everybody know that I put up the link here for the meditation challenge. I actually did a meditation challenge last month in my Facebook group. But if you want to do this month, the reason I had Dean on too was because we're launching the new challenge, which is indoor activity. And so you don't have to, because it's time to be starting to do some body weight exercises and things like that. Seriously, go follow Dean on Facebook too. It's Dean Dwyer. He shows his exercises that he does and everything. So get on that.
Can see my weighted skipping ropes in the back there. They're hanging off the door.
Yeah. Really, seriously, guys. I mean, I've seen him doing the work. I mean, okay, look, you're not going to be able to do all the stuff that he does right from the beginning. I'll tell you that right now, because I look and go, oh my Lord, I can't do that. But you don't have to do what Dean's doing right now. He didn't start doing those exercises. But join the group, jimkellner.info/healthy living. Join the group. If you do the challenge, it's a very easy challenge. You get to go to my website, pick a free product. So do that. Dean, please, I need to know also, before you summarize, where can people find your book at?
You know what, Jim, oddly enough, the publisher doesn't publish it anymore.
Oh.
Yeah. Sure. But it is actually, you can get the, you can get a PDF download if you go to my site. If you click on the store link, it's available there. It's,
fantastic.
Yeah, I said, you know what? It's interesting. I said, I wrote that 8 years ago, and I've reviewed it. It's funny, after I've had a certain amount of time, I've reviewed it. I'm like, this is actually, like, the content. I'm a big believer in sort of timeless principles. And I was like, aside from the scale one, I thought, I do all these things. Like, I firmly believed in them. I just took me 8 extra years to figure out how to make them work.
You know what, I got to tell you, really, seriously, go get that PDF. I read the book. It's an awesome book, and it's an easy to read book because there's lots of illustrations, which I really appreciated. Thank you for that.
And I don't use the big words.
No big words. No. All right, everybody. So, Dean, in closing, what can you tell us?
Oh boy, there's so many things, Jim, that I could share. And I'm going to deviate. Well, I'll share the 3 that I was initially going to share. I said there's lots of things. It's not just one thing, and I think that's also a myth of, like, there's this one big aha moment. Right. I've had multiple, and I will continue to have multiple aha moments. But I was just going to say, the comment about, like, one of the mistakes that people make is you look at, like, for example, if you look at the exercises I'm doing now, what people do is they'll look at that and they'll go, oh, well, that's great that Dean can do that, but I can't do that.
Yeah.
And but like, you're not thinking about this right, is that I didn't start out there. When I started out on this journey, for example, with pull-ups, I could do 2.5. And I didn't even start with pull-ups. I didn't start doing pull-ups till about a month in. I didn't even like doing pull-ups. I just started with push-ups, and I thought I'm just going to do 100 push-ups a day. And I broke it down. Initially, I could do a set of about 20. So 5 times throughout the day, I did that. So the whole point there is you start where you're at. So, we dismiss all these things and we go, I can't do that. It's like, if you start following people, not just me, but if you follow anybody, find out like their backstory about how they think about this stuff, and take the principle and not look at the exercise and go, well, I can't do that, so I'm just not going to do it. It's like you want to find something that begins to push you towards the direction you want to go. So anyhow, that's sort of a little aside to what I was going to say. Jim, it's not so much tasks they can do, because without question, the biggest reason I've had success is because I didn't start with stuff to do. I started with how to think. I changed the way that I thought, because I've got a whole mindset model too that I operate on, which is, and I believe I can explain for most people why they have success, and then they resort back to where they once were, because this is what it was for me, is that we don't change our mindset. So we have the same mindset we've always had. We use force to do these things that we think are going to benefit us. But at some point, that mindset will creep back in, and it will take us right back where we once were. So everything for me starts with mindset. I talked about sugar. Once I figured out the whole thing about sugar is actually this amazing productivity hack, which allows me to do less in all other areas to build a successful body, it's like, it was easy for me, put that in quotation marks, but it was easy for me then to take sugar out and fall in love with taking it out. But I will say, so a couple of mindsets that have been really pivotal, not pivotal to me. The first one is that we can teach ourselves anything at any age, right? So one of the things that I think is interesting about my story is I'm 55 right now. I started this when I was 53. I'm creating changes at an age when a lot of people feel like there's a cap on when change can actually happen. And for most of us, is sort of, it's 25 or 30. There's a range there for all of us. But at some point, we feel like I am who I am, and it's like I completely dismiss aging. I believe that aging is something that we have never really done a ton of research on in terms of how we approach it. So I'm at war with aging. I'm not into negativity and stuff like that. But when it comes to aging, I'm at a full out war with it. But you can teach yourself anything. So I've taught myself how to take sugar out of my diet. I've taught myself discipline. I bought the scale to teach myself resilience. Doesn't matter how old you are. If you're open to the idea of change and you're willing to sort of explore all options to create that change, it is possible to make change happen. So that's the first one. Number two is that behaviors trump DNA. A lot of people will say, well, you had a great line about the obesity, runs in my family. And what was your line? It was,
I get a lot of clients that say, well, obesity runs in my family. I said, well, does unhealthy eating and lack of exercise also run in your family?
Right. And we use our DNA to sort of give ourselves an out. We say, oh, well, that's just, I'm big. Like I could have easily said, well, I'm big. I've always been this way. But geneticist David Sinclair, he wrote the book Lifespan. He said that DNA determines about 20% of who we become, which means the other 8% is negotiable. It's our behaviors that we invest in. Yeah. So again, understanding that, I have a ton of control over how I look. I don't have to be overweight like I was for the first half century of my life, right? That I do have the ability to invest in better behaviors that will actually allow me to overcome what I think is a DNA problem. So behavior trumps DNA. And then the third thing, in the online world, they say content is king. In the behavior change world, consistency is king. Is that a lot of people talk about the idea of being consistent, and the way they talk about it is they say you need to be consistent. But it's that whole concept I talked about earlier, Jim, about I had to stop stopping. So if I'm investing in a behavior, I look to invest in daily behaviors. So some people will be like, I'm going to work out 3 or 4 days a week. But I'm going to set this up so I only do 10 minutes, but I can do it every day. and I've done it every day for 474 days.
Wow.
So I don't burn myself out because I never change my clothes. I do my workout of whatever I'm wearing. Sporadic minutes throughout my day, I work it in. But the reason I've been successful is that I've stopped stopping. So I've got my 10 vital behaviors and I do them. My goal is perfection every single day. Now, I don't always achieve perfection, but that's the goal every single day. And at the end of that day, doesn't matter what kind of success I had, I start again the next day. I don't throw the whole program out and say, oh, this isn't going to work, or I'll start again next Monday or next month or next year. It's like I get right back on track as soon as I fall off the wagon. But I do them every single day without fail. And I said, there's a whole lot of things we could talk about, but those are the three biggest principles that I sort of guide my life by.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for being on today. Really appreciate it.
This was great. I'm really glad we finally got on. Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, if you're out there, as I always ask you, you don't have to do everything. Pick one thing that Dean talked about today. Do it this week. For me, I'm actually the sugar and sweetener. It's gone. It's got to be gone starting right now.
That's great. By the way, sorry, and I will say with that, if you're looking at action, can I tell a very quick story?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, so a friend of mine in Texas, she has clients that she was working with a woman. I've told this story numerous times, but I've never forgotten this story, and I think the principle behind this is brilliant. She was working with a woman who got up to 299 pounds. She was terrified. She was going to, get to 300. She's like, you got to help me. So they had a meeting. They sat down, took a look at everything she was eating, and she said, okay, what's the worst thing in your diet right now that if you took that out would have a noticeable improvement on your life? Soda. She drank about 2 liters of soda a day. Wow. So she was like, okay, I'm going to work on just taking that one thing. Don't take all sugar out. That's way too much, way too fast. People that again, it's too extreme of a behavior. Start with one thing that you think would have a significant difference. So she said, okay, you work on taking that out. Contact me once it's out. 6 weeks later, she contacted her and said, okay, I've been able to kind of transition out of that, and I'm now drinking unsweetened green tea. And I thought it was just the concept. I never forgot it because it was like, rather than tackle sugar, let's just tackle one thing. So you take sweetener out. Maybe like for me, people think like when I say I quit sugar, I actually started quitting sugar about 20 years ago because I used to put it in my coffee. I'd have 2 tablespoons of my coffee with a whole bunch of cream. And then over time, I got to the point where I taught myself to drink it black, right? So, and I started with that. I didn't start with everything. So it's been kind of this 20-year journey to finally get to the point I'm at now. But it did start about 20 years ago. So that's a great, what you just said about the sweetener is a great way to approach all behavior change. Like you should take a look at what I know where I want to go. I want to take sugar out of my diet. Sorry, Jim, I'm throwing all these stories in at the last minute.
Please.
Taught myself. So I've always wanted to take a cold shower. Love the idea, but the idea of standing in a cold shower is not fun. So what I decided to do is I thought, okay, I'll do my regular shower, and then at the end, I'll blast it to cold, and I'll stay in as long as I could, which was about 15 seconds. Yeah. What I ended up doing is I call it a behavior change ladder. Is I made a small change every week. So I went in 5-second intervals. So over the course of 6 months, so every week, so I went from 15 to 20 seconds. And so it wasn't so unbearable because the level of change was unnoticeable. Like you don't really notice the extra 5 seconds. Worked my way up. Now I do on a regular basis. I do 3 minutes without any screaming or shouting or anything else. But I end all my showers now with a 3-minute cold shower. I use it as to do a sort of deep breathing exercise while I'm doing it. But took me 6 months to get myself to 3 minutes. So I didn't just say, I'm going to do 3 minutes. Way too much, way too soon. I start at the minimum viable threshold, and then I just sort of inch my way up over time. I'm doing the same thing right now to get myself up earlier. So I'm working backwards to, it's like, okay, well, let's get up at 8 o'clock, and then we'll get up at 7:45 and then 7:30, whatever, time I decide I want to get up at. But I take that now with all the behaviors that I'm looking to change.
Wow. You gave me chills with the cold shower.
And that's free, Jim. We don't charge for the chills.
Like you're Canadian, so you're used to being cold. So
Yes, I know. Winter is coming here, as Jon Snow would say.
Winter is coming. Dean, again, man, thanks so much for being on the show today. I really appreciate it.
Jim, it was great. I'm glad we had a chance to reconnect. And yeah, thank you so much. This is fun. It's great.
Please, everybody, go out there. Just type it in right now, DeanDwyer.com. If you don't do it right now, you're going to forget. Type it in, DeanDwyer.com. Go download the tools he's got. He's got a lot of cool stuff there. I'm going to go download those apps, by the way. I'm using some, but I'm going to download those. Who wants to join with me? I'm starting today. I'm going to start. So Dean made a good point. I'm not going to get rid of all sweeteners. I'm going to take all the real sugar out. So I'm not going to deviate. I'm not going to take that, have that mint that I might have later, you know, that's got the sugar. So I'll just take that stuff out. I'll work on the keto ice cream later. If you want to try hypnosis for free, there's a link right there, jimkellnerhypnotist.com/free-hypnosis. Grab it. Thanks a lot for listening, everybody. Please like, comment, share, and also subscribe. Take care. Be well. Be awesome.